Alice and Steve begins as a chaotic comedy about an inappropriate relationship, but by the finale, it becomes a story about friendship, control, family, and the painful reality that people we love often make choices we cannot stop. The ending brings every major conflict to a breaking point and leaves viewers with a huge cliffhanger. The central conflict of the season is not simply the age difference between Steve and Izzy. Alice's real struggle is that she feels she is losing control of two of the most important people in her life. Steve has been her closest friend for years, while Izzy is her daughter. When they begin a romantic relationship, Alice feels betrayed by both of them. Throughout the season, she tries repeatedly to break them apart. Her actions become increasingly destructive because she cannot accept that neither Steve nor Izzy is willing to choose her side. Instead of adapting to the new reality, Alice starts fighting against it. The conflict escalates when Alice leaks information that damages Steve's professional life. Steve eventually retaliates, exposing embarrassing material that harms Alice's own career. Their friendship turns into a bitter war, and both end up hurting each other in ways that would have seemed impossible at the beginning of the story. Despite all the chaos surrounding them, Steve and Izzy continue moving forward with their relationship. The situation becomes even more complicated when Izzy becomes pregnant. The child is not Steve's biological baby, but Steve agrees to help raise the child and commit himself fully to Izzy. This decision pushes their relationship toward marriage. For Alice, the engagement represents total defeat. She has spent months trying to prove that the relationship is temporary, unhealthy, or doomed to fail. Instead, Steve and Izzy are preparing to build a family together. However, cracks begin to appear beneath the surface. Izzy is not completely certain about the future she is choosing. She contacts her former boyfriend, who is also the father of her baby. This suggests that part of her still wonders whether she is making the right decision. The rehearsal dinner becomes one of the most explosive scenes of the series. Unable to contain her frustration any longer, Alice publicly declares that Steve is actually Izzy's father. The room is stunned because the claim sounds believable. Alice and Steve had a romantic history years earlier, making the accusation seem possible. The revelation immediately throws everyone into confusion. Moments later, Alice admits that the story is not true. She never intended it as a genuine confession. Instead, she wanted to force everyone to stop and think about how strange the situation really was. Even if the statement was a lie, she hoped it would make Steve and Izzy question their decision. The scene perfectly captures Alice's emotional state. She is desperate, angry, and willing to say almost anything to stop the wedding. By this point, she is no longer acting rationally. Her fear of losing Steve and Izzy has overwhelmed her judgment. The rehearsal dinner is not the only sign of Alice's deteriorating state. At one point, she points a hunting firearm toward Steve when nobody else is watching. Whether she truly intends to hurt him or simply wants to terrify him is left ambiguous, but the incident reveals how toxic their relationship has become. Steve becomes convinced that Alice is capable of doing something dangerous. Yet, because of Alice's history with him, other people struggle to take his fears seriously. Even Izzy begins wondering whether Steve is overreacting. Ironically, the person Steve fears most will soon become the person who risks her life to save him. The finale's biggest turning point arrives when a fire breaks out at the property where everyone is staying. As panic spreads, people rush to escape. Most of the guests manage to get outside safely. Steve, however, remains trapped inside the burning building. Because he is listening to music through headphones, he does not realize the danger surrounding him. Everyone outside assumes that entering the building would be suicide. Yet Alice makes a decision that reveals the truth about her feelings. Despite everything that has happened between them, she runs back into the fire. Throughout the season, Alice has tried to sabotage Steve's happiness. She has fought against his relationship and blamed him for tearing apart her family. Yet when his life is genuinely in danger, none of that matters anymore. Alice saves Steve because she still loves him, not romantically, but as the closest friend she has ever had. Her anger never erased the years of friendship they shared. When faced with the possibility of his death, she chooses loyalty over resentment. When Alice finally reaches him, Steve initially believes she has come to kill him. That reaction shows how badly their friendship has deteriorated. However, she quickly convinces him that she is there to rescue him, and together they search for a way out. After escaping one part of the building, Alice and Steve discover a new problem. The fire has blocked their route to safety. They find themselves trapped high above the ground with almost no chance of survival. Their only possible escape involves making an enormous jump toward a nearby area below. Believing they may die, they finally stop fighting. For the first time all season, they speak honestly. The bitterness that fueled their conflict begins to disappear. Steve admits regrets about the choices he has made. Alice confesses that she felt as though she had lost both her daughter and her best friend when their relationship became public. The conversation reveals that the real tragedy was never the romance itself. The tragedy was the destruction of a friendship that once meant everything to both of them. In the face of death, they realize how much time they wasted hurting each other. The series deliberately refuses to answer this question. With the flames closing in, Alice and Steve decide to take one final chance. They leap from the burning structure towards safety. The camera leaves their fate unresolved. The audience never sees where they land or whether they survive the jump. The cliffhanger functions on two levels. On a literal level, it creates suspense for a potential second season. Viewers are left wondering whether either character survived the fall. On a symbolic level, the jump represents a leap of faith. After spending the entire season trapped by anger, fear, and resentment, Alice and Steve finally choose trust. Neither knows what awaits them on the other side, but they jump together anyway. The finale also leaves Izzy's future uncertain. Although she is preparing to marry Steve, her message to her former boyfriend suggests lingering doubts. Because he is the father of her child, there remains a possibility that she could reconsider her future and reunite with him. The story intentionally avoids providing a definitive answer. Instead, it leaves Izzy standing between two possible lives, one with Steve and one with the father of her baby. The ending of Alice and Steve is ultimately about acceptance. For 6 episodes, Alice tries to control the people around her. She wants her daughter to make certain choices. She wants Steve to behave in a certain way. She wants life to return to what it once was. Every attempt fails. Only when the fire arrives does she finally let go. Saving Steve proves that her love for him is stronger than her anger. Their final conversation proves that friendship can survive even the deepest betrayal. Whether Alice and Steve live or die is almost secondary to that emotional resolution. By the time they jump, they have already achieved something important. They have forgiven each other. After a season defined by conflict, the finale ends with reconciliation, uncertainty, and the possibility of a new beginning, if they survive long enough to see it.